I was a man who was somewhat lost, where I was making millions of dollars and flying private and doing all these things to having nothing. And how am I going to feed my family? Like, I've been working hard to support my family and achieve the world's success, but who am I?
What do you think was your best decision so far? Something life-changing?
But it completely changed who I was, you know.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today in our studio, a very special guest. Well, as always, I bring only the best people to you guys. Today in our studio, there's a Jeff. This person is famous of, I guess, making it all. Yeah, he was working in real estate, making shit tons of money, achieving everything possible and impossible, having everything in this life. And then, well, you will see in this video what kind of transformation he went through, what kind of insights he got from his journey. And also, I believe that this episode today will be very useful for any man who's looking for meaning, who's looking for purpose, who's looking for the most ecological, healthy way of achieving goals, achieving things, building relationship, building a family also, and generally to build a business as well. So, hello, Jeff.
Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming for us today. And we'll begin with my favorite, but the most tricky question.
Right to it.
Right straight from the very beginning. So can you represent yourself to me and our viewers today from the perspective of your biggest transformation, who you were before and who you became after?
Yeah. My biggest transformation was that, I was a man who was somewhat lost. I was somewhat lost in my purpose. I was somewhat lost physically and, had achieved a lot of success. And by the way of the world, I was making it, but I felt empty. And so over the last 10 years, I've been on a journey where I've really transformed my life, not only physically, but mindset and everything that goes along with that, strengthened my faith. And it's been wonderful.
I love it. So put me into the context of your life before. What was your upbringing? What was your life before? What was the peak of your previous life?
Yeah. I grew up in a great family. Sports was very important. Achievement was very important. I earned a scholarship playing both baseball and football in college. And in college, I actually started a family.
Wow.
I was 19 when I had my son and got married shortly, thereafter. It wasn't planned like that, but that's the way it worked. And so I was forced to grow up at a pretty young age. And the biggest blessing in my life are my two sons, who are now adults, but really kind of spurred me on this where I need to provide. I need to be the provider. I need to take what I've learned in achieving in sports and put that towards business. And so I spent, the next 20 years trying to achieve in business and provide for my family, and good and bad. Went through a lot of ups and downs, some major victories, and achieved a lot of success. And then, you take an example like 2008 in the great financial crisis, GFC, where I was making millions of dollars and flying private and doing all these things to having nothing. And how am I going to feed my family, So the ups and downs, and then ultimately I found myself in my mid 30s, really kind of figuring out, okay, who is Jeff? Like, I've been working hard to support my family and, achieve the world's success, but who am I? And so I've been on a journey the last 10 years, really trying to figure out who that is. And there's been a lot of changes. I'm a different person today than I was, 10, 15 years ago.
And when you've been growing up, you've been forced to become a provider in the early age, but who were you looking up to? Who were your role models or your shine, the North Star of your success, who you wanted to look like?
Yeah, I think in my core, so my faith is very important to me, like in my Christian faith. And so that I think that's kind of the bedrock and been constant throughout my life. But, I shifted from having kind of heroes in sports and what I wanted to do to kind of heroes in business. And one of those things was after I graduated from college, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And it was given to me, and it really kind of changed my paradigm over what I wanted. I was 22, and I set a goal to be financially free, to become a multimillionaire, and to figure out how to invest in real estate from a guy that had, was 22 with two kids and having no money, And so that started this journey, again, over a 20-year period where that was my goal.
22, two kids, and you want to become successful. What was your main motivation to become successful? What was going on in your head back then?
Fear. It was really fear. It was, how am I gonna provide for my family? I thought, going into college and having some success playing baseball, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player, and that ended up getting injured, and so I had to pivot. And I said, "Look, I'm not going to make millions supporting my family playing baseball. I need to do it a different way." And so it was really out of fear. And how am I going to make sure that my family has food on the table? And so that was what motivated me every single day is my kids and just making sure that I didn't they were never without. I had my family was great, but we had a situation in my early teens where my family was successful, but we lost a business, and going from having a lot to really not having very much was pretty traumatizing, and I didn't want that for my family. So that's what motivated me.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. As we discussed with you before, I don't really believe that trauma is something negative in our life. I believe that trauma is shaping us into a specific form and shape of people who we need to become in order to serve our purpose. So now, when you're already adult, when you already went through so many ups and downs, how do you think, what was the main lesson that you learned by observing your family losing everything they had, basically?
I couldn't agree more. I think that was instrumental to the man that I've become, and really motivated me. I look back and I'm like, oh, that sucked, but it made me work hard. It developed relentless work ethic. So many people, so many guys that I know, they just don't have that motivation, right? And I just, for me, it was out of fear and being able to provide for my family, but it really spurred on a strong desire to be a provider, to have a very strong work ethic, to be resourceful. All of those qualities that I consider to me my best traits today were forged out of that experience, you know?
And I believe there was also lots of pressure back then, because what I've noticing right now, modern men are under lots of pressure of becoming successful, becoming a provider, figuring out what the real role of provider means in the modern age where everything is so uncertain. How did you deal with that pressure? Maybe some good advices for anyone who's going through the same thing?
Yeah, honestly, not very well, to be honest. And it caused issues in relationships because I just felt that pressure all the time, the stress, the almost like a gorilla standing on your chest of like, how are you going to do this? And it wasn't always easy. It's difficult to go from a standing start to provide for a family, a family of four at a young age, and deal with all that. But no, I mean, I think you're right. Pressure is absolutely a piece of that. One of the things that I always considered to be one of my releases was working out and getting into the gym. And so that for me was my happy hour. My quiet time was every day going to the gym. Whereas some guys go to the bar, I went to the gym, and that was my release, you know?
Did that any of destructive behaviors or abusing substances touched your story back then? Because I know that lots of men that under pressure they turn it into alcohol, drugs, weed, whatever.
I never was into substances. That wasn't a thing for me. I think the addictions that I fell into was needing affirmation and
The what?
needing affirmation.
Mm.
What's the right term? It's seeking validation. Trying to have the fancy car, trying to have the nicest home on the street, the nicest suit. That was the addiction that I fell into. It wasn't drugs or alcohol. My brother was actually, still is actually, has been an addict and struggles with that. So I never was interested in any of that stuff. Never appealed to me. I like to be in control, so I don't like to have, foreign substances, controlling me. But I would say that I definitely had fallen into an addiction of needing affirmation and kind of accolades and all that worldly stuff that guys fall into.
I believe also seeking validation for men can become a big addiction because if you, especially in the young age, when you don't have this self validation inside of yourself, when you're still in the process of building your own perception of the world and values, you need some feedback from the world. But there is a very, very invisible line between seeking feedback and seeking validation.
Right.
Any advices on this point? How to build this self validation mechanism inside of yourself to support yourself?
Yeah. Well, I think it requires a lot of self reflection. I think again, over the last 10 years, I've made a practice every morning of prayer time, of meditation, of journaling, really kind of understanding what it is that I'm feeling. And to be really honest with you, it's been really recently where I feel like I'm finally getting there. It is a process to unwind a lot of that stuff.
How
And
does it feel that you're getting closer?
it feels really good. It feels having to seek validation and deriving your value from what other people think is exhausting. Being able to find fulfillment in yourself and to wake up every day comfortable in your own skin is a very freeing feeling. Freedom is one of my most important values, not only, having financial freedom and everything else, but freedom in myself and just feeling like, okay, I'm actually good enough. Like I don't need to drive something. I don't need to wear I wear an Apple Watch now because I don't need the timepiece anymore, just as a reminder that I don't need that. I don't need all that. And it's really freeing. It just takes a lot of that pressure off, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It sounds like freedom, needing less. Um, so, as I know your story, you did reach success back then, even out of fear, even out of, let's say, not the most healthy motivation, but you did build the business and you reached that success. But success can be different.
Mhm.
And maybe I would want to hear also some ideas from your part what you did wrong
Mm.
building this billion-dollar business practically, as I remember, but what was wrong about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah, we built, I mean, ultimately I was investing in real estate. And we did over 20 years. I was involved in about $4 billion of development and acquisitions. And yeah, by the world standards, that's really successful. Um, I think one of the things was I was motivated by money. I was motivated by financial freedom was very important to me. But while real estate is an awesome vehicle to get you there, and so many people want to get involved in real estate, it felt pretty empty to me. It felt like I'm just making money for myself. My partners that I worked with, very successful. Some of them were billionaires, multi millionaires. And I felt like I'm just making the rich richer, if that makes sense. Yes, it was cool. Yes, it was fun. Yes, it provided a lot of amazing opportunities and financial freedom ultimately. But it wasn't fulfilling. And chasing money as your sole purpose is feels pretty empty.
Yeah, I hear many successful people saying the same thing. As a person who never did a million in my life, I still struggle to believe that just achieving, like just chasing money is not enough. I understand it as a life coach, but just hearing it with the years of an ordinary listener, prove it to me. Prove it to me that it's not enough. What's more than that? Afterwards, when you build another businesses which was also really successful, what was the missing piece that you figured, okay, this is something that I was missing in my previous successful businesses. This is it.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, I'll tell you. So, funny enough, a couple years ago, I was head of acquisitions for a national development group in the U.S. Awesome company, loved it, like amazing people, everything. I was earning seven figures on my way to eight figures, and I was working with a coach at the time who really started to help me on this journey. And we had a conversation, and the next day, I walked into my partner's office, and I said, "Today's my last day." And he said, "No, like, let's talk about this. Why don't you take a couple weeks and, we can kind of talk about this." And I said, "No, actually, I'm getting on a flight to Australia tonight. I'm going to see my partner. Today's my last day." And that was, it was scary in the sense that, you're walking away from what I had dreamed of. I'd worked really hard, 20 years to build that and to get to that point. But I just knew there was more. And so I was willing to walk away from that. And the journey over the next couple of years has been amazing. I'm actually doing something that I love now. We make a really good income, but it's helping people, and it fires me up every day. I feel fulfilled, and that to me is that's everything.
Just so the missing piece is that by doing what you do, what you like, you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping other people. So you're giving together with receiving. You are in this flow of life. You're one of the pieces that's actually just not only receiving, but also gives away
Exactly.
to the community, to other people.
Yeah. Um, again, my Christian faith is important to me, and too much is given, much is expected. And so that's how I kind of view it: is use your blessings to bless others. And so that's how I kind of approach all of this is, yes, I've been blessed, and in the real estate world, I felt like I was being blessed and I was just kind of taking that. And yes, I could, do donations and different things and charities and what have you. But here I actually really feel like I'm giving. And that fires me up.
Do you feel that in your previous business in real estate, in some sort of way, you were betraying your beliefs, your faith?
At the time, I wouldn't say it was that. I wouldn't say that I felt like I was betraying that. I could be wrong. There's probably a deeper level to that. I just felt like at the time in that season of life, that's where I was supposed to be. And I needed to, it wasn't until I kind of had an awakening where I realized there was so much more, and so it wasn't, perhaps it was that I was betraying, but I think more importantly, it was just, I felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then when I recognized that had shifted and that had changed, it would have been betraying myself to stay doing it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, what is the business that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. We help men and women transform their lives every day, and we do it through physically. We help folks optimize their hormones, medical weight loss, all of those things. So we have a company called Biodosed where we are effectively a telemedicine hormone replacement clinic licensed in all 50 states in the United States. And we work with thousands of people of all walks of life and really help them to look and feel better and kind of recapture their vitality, their strength, their purpose, just in a different way through their hormones and the way they feel physically.
And I believe to have this kind of business, you did lots of research on what actually people are struggling at the moment. What are the changes? What are the difference, men and women, hormone wise? What are the things maybe that shocked you? Information that were really surprising to know.
Yeah. Well, first off, the hormone replacement business has changed a lot. So I first started on hormone replacement about 10 years ago, and at the time it was very taboo. It was almost weird if you did it, and very very much looked down upon. It has changed so much over the last 10 years to where it's accepted. There's all kinds of vehicles like telemedicine that make it much more approachable. What I realized, though, I was actually asked to join the board of a clinic. That's how I got actually into the industry. And what I realized in doing that was the bar is so low in that industry that there's not that standard. There's not that person or that clinic or company that's really doing it right. And so that's what we set out. We set out to do it right and to make sure that we're helping people, not just to make money, but to really change their lives.
Hmm. So, what is hormone replacement? How does it work?
Yeah. So the way it works is obviously our bodies function with hormones. That's a big part of who we are and how we act and how we feel. What we found in the world today with all the stress and foods and different things is our hormones can get out of whack pretty easily. Stress, everything. And so what we do and the approach we take is to actually see where you're at. And so if a patient comes to us, we do blood work and we see, okay, these are your markers. And from there, we can assess where they're deficient, where they're strong, all of those things, and build a program that allows them to optimize their levels so that they can feel like they should, like they were designed to be. And a lot of times as we get older, I'm 47, those are naturally going to decline. But through optimization, we can look and feel like we did when we were in our prime. And so that's our goal, is to help men and women feel like they're in their prime every single day, regardless of age, regardless of background.
Is this something that you do yourself as well?
Personally,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. I'm our biggest patient, right? And so I've been on it for 10 years, hormone optimization, and that's testosterone replacement therapy. And what I've been able to do though is I've been able to dial in what is my optimal levels, and it's different for everybody, And so for me, it's taken me a while and working with the top professionals to figure out this is where I function best. This is where I don't have brain fog. This is where I have good vitality and energy and motivation, and physically as well. Like at 47, I look and feel better than I did when I was 22 because I'm optimized. My body's not fighting against me as it had been for the previous 20 years when I was hitting the gym. So it feels so good to finally get that dialed in. And that's what we try to help people do, is really dial it in for them. And it's different for everybody.
How the average person can understand that something is wrong with my hormones? Like I need to at least ask for help or do the research.
Symptoms. Yeah, symptoms are usually where it starts. So a lot of times it can be a lack of motivation. It can be your moods are off. It can be starting to hold some excess body fat, or just feeling like your joints are hurting, or different things. That's your body telling you like, hey, we're not optimized right now. We're not operating at our peak levels. And so a lot of times people, when they come to us, they have no idea what the issue is, and we don't know either. you have to do the blood work and you have to see where they're at, but it's symptoms. And even when somebody appears normal, oftentimes they can be suffering underneath the hood and there can be things going on. So that's why we're all about really we're not guessing. We're seeing exactly what's going on in your body, and then our medical professionals dial it in.
Mhm. I love it for you. It sounds like a business that actually helps people, helps community, helps to make people's life better. Love it. What's the downside of it? What's the
Hmm.
struggle that you face?
I would say the downside of it is, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and that's what we aim to change. Though for us, the downside is an opportunity is that we really want to educate people. Really want to help people understand the truth. And so, a perfect example of that, there's a hot topic out there right now, which is Ozempic and medical weight loss. People do it the right way, and people do it the wrong way. And if you do it the wrong way, you're going to get some of the negative effects of it. And there's a right way to do it. And when people use these compounds, semaglutide or tirzepatide or the GLP-1s that we're talking about, it is a miracle drug. And I mean that. Elon Musk said it's perhaps the top invention of this century. And I believe that because in America, almost 70% of our population is obese. And these drugs can fix that. But there's a lot of information. There's a lot of fear tactics. There's a lot of people that don't know really what these do that are spreading misinformation. So it's a downside, but it's also an opportunity to educate people and to doing it the right way.
Do you believe that's the future of just most of the people in the future who would want to take control under their weight or their physique would use drugs similar to this one?
It is the future, and we're just scratching the surface. I think we're in the first inning of a 9 inning ball game. We're just the beginning. I mean, you start to talk about the GLP-1s and the hormone optimization, and peptides are becoming a big thing, and we're just scratching the surface on that. Pretty soon, there's stem cells and exosomes. The longevity space and what we're seeing, from our medical professionals is incredible. And in talking with a lot of these top experts, I joke with my partner, but I said, "You better get used to me because I'm going to be living till 150."
I'm gonna stick for a
Yeah,
while.
I'm going to be here.
I'm gonna keep looking better and better with every year.
Exactly. Better with age, aging in reverse. And so, no, I think we're in the first inning. And I think if people can keep themselves healthy over the next 15, 20 years, they're going to be able to tap into all these tools that will really allow them to prolong their life and do so in a way that they're really thriving.
Hmm. But when we're talking about longevity of our body, there's also longevity of our mindset, of our mind. And I guess it's also a big part that lots of people who's into biohacking or into sports, they're forgetting until they get the symptoms, until they can't manage themselves anymore. What's the mindset hygiene that you're following every day that's a part of your routine and your lifestyle?
Yeah. So again, for me, what I found is that I need to start my day. That's the first focus is, again, that prayer time, that meditation, that journaling, kind of grounding myself because it is so easy to get off in a different direction. And our mindset and the way we go about and walk through life has a big impact on us physically as well. And so that's what I try to do, at least in my platform and my conversations with folks, is for them to understand that, yes, we can equip you with the training programs, we can equip you with what to eat, the right hormones and the right tools to do that. But it really comes down to your mind and how you talk to yourself, how you function, how are you grounding yourself, how are you sleeping, all of those things. And it's comprehensive, right? And so that's why I think it's so important for folks to work with coaches like yourself to dial that in, because it's not something that's easy to do on your own. And it's not something that most people will do. They get comfortable. They're just like, this is who I am, right? This is who I am. This is the way I think. And that's not optimization.
What's your best solutions on that?
As far as,
On the mindset, like what's the best tools that you're using yourself, your best investments maybe?
well, I've invested a lot in self-development and personal education. I've invested over $500,000 over the last 10 years on self-development. And so I think it's putting yourselves in the right rooms, talking to the right people, understanding, like seeking information, but also implementing it. A lot of people, can seek the information on, oh, this is what I need to do, but then you need somebody to help you implement that or some tools to help you implement that. And so for me, journaling is a big piece of that and being reflective of that. But I've also hired a lot of coaches over the years that have helped me to implement that. It's like why Michael Jordan hired, a coach to help him, even though he's the best player in the world. We need people to hold us accountable. We need people to guide us to see our blind spots, right? And so I think coaching is a huge piece of that. And while we can help people in the physical world and the optimization world, there's a need to do that with our minds as well.
Spending $500,000 on self development. What's your top three takes?
Top three takes: abundance over scarcity. That's the big one. I came from a scarcity mindset. And so for me, the biggest pull away is that we truly have abundance in this world if we don't have limiting beliefs and limit ourselves to that. So I think that's a big one. Um, I think in every situation and every conversation, you can pull out one thing and use that for your own purpose. So these conferences that I go to, I might be there for 3 to 5 days, but if I can pull one thing away from that that really helps me or helps somebody else, that's worth the entire time and money spent on that. And I think it's third and probably most importantly is putting yourself around like-minded people that think the same way you do and are going to lift you up versus tear you down, people that motivate you. You reach a certain point where you can be the big fish in a small pond and you're just limiting yourself. I don't want to do that. I want to put myself around people that challenge me. And perfect example of that, my partner, we have a great relationship, but she challenges me. And I was with people previously who didn't challenge me, and I was really comfortable. But what I love about her is she challenges me. And as men, we need to be challenged. It's okay to be the masculine and provider and protector and all that stuff, but we need other men then to challenge us. We need to be accountable to people, right?
I'm very curious about this topic on masculine and feminine because as a woman, I just find myself keep hearing this conversation from my girlfriends over and over again. Apparently, for the last couple of years, everyone is questioning masculinity and femininity because the limits of it became so vague. You said your partner is challenging you. How exactly? Or where is this line or difference between challenging and testing?
Well, I think it's both. I think the feminine tests. And that's by human nature. They need to make sure that the man they're with can handle what they need to in life. But I think from a challenging standpoint, I mean, she forces me to step up. I've always considered myself a protector and a provider, and that's great. But it's more than that. It's about providing safety. It's about allowing them to operate in their feminine and to feel safe in doing that. And oftentimes, as guys, we just I think we limit that through our own actions. And I think if you're truly a masculine, we'll call him alpha man, you're allowing your woman to explore her femininity and feel safe in doing that.
How do you provide this safety for your woman?
I think it's through. I think it's through safety. I think it's through. It's through communication. It's through consistency. I think it's through doing what you say you're going to do and knowing that she has a man that acts out of integrity. There's a lot of guys out there that talk about a man can sleep with a lot of women if he's a powerful man, and the women should just accept that. And to me, that's not it. Yes, in theory, kings have always had all these women and everything else around them. But if you really want to have a great relationship, and you really want your woman to feel alive and empowered, you need to be a man that she can rely upon.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely monogamous, so I do really believe in the idea that if you focus on one person, really invest into the relationship, it can grow into something absolutely amazing. Together, together with that, the superpower of woman is to multiply whatever you give to her.
Yeah.
So you give her scarcity, she multiplies that. You give her comfort and confidence, she multiplies that. Success as well. Give me one very practical example of maybe a little thing that you did for your partner that had an amazing results. Because most of the men that I'm meeting, they're saying, oh, it means that you need to provide for her financially. You need to cover her lifestyle, or like in this way you will meet a gold digger. There's lots of bullshit in this direction. But we both know that some of these things cost absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think in bigger picture, I think women are ultimately a reflection of the man they're with. I think that we're seeing it in society that men are complaining about women all the time, but it's just a reflection of how we've, as men, forced them to essentially react and respond. And so I think the same thing can be said in a relationship. If you're not getting the as a man, if you're not getting the results or the love and the respect that you want, I think it's a reflection of what you're putting out and what you're not giving her. And so a perfect example of that was, you know, it, my partner and I had recently I could feel there was a little tension in the conversation. And I will tell you in the past, let's say, 5, 10 years ago, I would have said, no, I'm the man. I make the decisions. This is the way it's going to be, my way or the highway, that kind of thing. And it doesn't go well, right? That's never going to go well. Instead, I try to take a different approach and say, you know what? Okay, we're a team. Let's figure out this together. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to understand really how this makes you feel and what you're feeling, what's triggering you, because I can feel your tension. I could immediately feel the soften, the walls come down, and we were able to have a really positive discussion and to come to resolution. But I think guys think that, because they're the man, they are entitled to have a role where they're dominant or they're in control. And I will tell you that the best way to do that is by kind of softening and allowing them to have a voice and to respect what they have to say. And maybe I'm not articulating it the way that I want to, but I can just tell you that that's a big thing that I've changed, is rather than having to be this I'm the man, I'm going to make the decisions. It's like, no, you know what? We're going to do this together. We're going to do it together.
Putting yourself a little bit in a vulnerable position.
Very vulnerable
Very vulnerable.
and uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But it's it's very freeing once you kind of see, okay, this actually works well. It's a reflection of how I'm treating her.
I believe once you try out, as a man, once you try out to be vulnerable and fully open with your partner in the relationship, if that works well and you're doing this with the right person, you receive the level of understanding and support you never had before, because at least somewhere you have the most safe space ever.
It's real intimacy when you can be vulnerable. Again, I've always been, I got to be the macho guy, and so like if I was struggling, I'd be like, no, I'm good, I got this. And I don't think that's the right answer. I think it's being vulnerable and being able to say, look, I am struggling, and um, I need you to understand this. And it's not that you're not strong, but I think there's strength in vulnerability and being open and being honest and not having to, necessarily have it all together all the time, but to be real.
Absolutely. I do agree with that as a woman who's also building a first long-term healthy relationship. I'm exploring this absolutely unlimited field of trying and building and fucking up and trying again. And what I've understood and learned recently is that it helps me so much to have a partner who's been through therapy, who knows how to communicate his feelings, who knows how to identify what he feels, and then to communicate it. It saves us tons of time. Together with that, just being able to build a genuine conversation with the person you love,
Yeah.
it's a huge relief. You don't have to argue, you don't have to scream, you don't have to manipulate, which makes you feel horrible.
Yeah.
You can be just honest and know that you're not gonna get kicked
Yeah.
from that, right? You
Absolutely.
can open yourself and be absolutely vulnerable in this space, and it helps to resolve any kind of conflict so much faster and so much better. And I believe that like the real best healthy relationship, they are born in these uncomfortable conversations that we're having.
I couldn't agree more. And make no mistake, I am just learning this. Like I'm like a little baby coming out of the womb trying to figure that piece out. But I see how impactful that is. And that's what I want. That's what I want for my relationship. That's what I want to teach my sons. That's what I want guys to know is that there's more. There's more than the way we've done it in the past, and I'm seeing that, and I'm all in. Like I get it, you know.
Talking about your sons as a representation of men of different generation, I believe you also spend quite a lot of time with them and observing what they're struggling with, because for every generation the struggle is different, right? What would you say from your perspective, the main struggle of the men in their middle 20s?
Yeah. I think that there's so many voices out there. There's so many voices out there of what masculinity really is today, and like how do I become successful? And there's all kinds of pressures today with young men. Um, everybody's flashing, everybody's faking, right? And so they see somebody on Instagram who's 25 and driving a Ferrari in Dubai, and they're like, "Well, I'm a failure if I haven't done that," right? And so I think social media is really hard. I think living up to expectations when in reality, what I tell guys is, you should spend your 20s finding out exactly who you are. Find out exactly who you are, what your purpose is, because if you're on your purpose, you're gonna be so much happier over time versus doing what I did, which is chase the trappings, and it's more prevalent today because of social media, and it's just more in your face. But I think that's the biggest struggle is guys feel like I have to sleep with a lot of women, I have to have a fancy car and be flashing all these things in order to be successful. And I think that's really hard. I think that's really hard for men today. And you try to help them, but they it's in their face every day. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, I already had three amazing, successful men on my podcast who literally told me pretty much the same story that when I was at my lowest, I was considering suicide. In my socials, I was killing it. I was in my peak. I looked amazing. I went to the gym every day. I had a beautiful girlfriend, beautiful house. I was killing this life. And feeling that you had to keep faking it while you're like burning from inside, that's the biggest self-betrayal you can ever manage. And it's never good for your mental health for sure. Even me seeing this 25-year-olds achieving everything that I think I ever dreamed of makes me question, makes me wonder, makes me doubt myself. That's why I want my social media and what we're doing here on the podcast to be very genuine, to explain that there are people who's questioning who they are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And I believe the day when you stop questioning who you are, that's the day you're gone. Like you're settled for whatever you have. You stop looking for the answers and you stop progressing. That's it.
Yeah. I wish I had done it in my 20s. It took me my mid 40s to figure that out. So I think yeah, I think it's understanding, it's okay to be authentically you. I think it's really important to find out who you are and to get on your purpose and to find your purpose as soon as you can in your life and to single-mindedly pursue your focus. And it's not about chasing women. It's not about, chasing success. If you're on your purpose, that stuff will chase you. You won't have an issue attracting a beautiful woman in your life if you're on your purpose and you're on your mission and you're living with integrity and authenticity. That's a magnet. And so I think guys just do it the opposite way of the way they should.
Yeah. I think just advice for everyone based on my experience is that it works reverse. We've been taught that first you chase, you get, and then you become happy, but works absolutely reverse. That's why it makes sense to spend more time on figuring out who I am, what I like, what's my values, what's my priorities, what I'm doing well in this life, and out of this build a concept, a construct of what can I do. So I would keep loving doing that over and over again. And once you're doing that, you put yourself into a state of being fulfilled, being happy, being following your purpose just means that I know what I'm doing and I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And this feeling puts you in a very specific state that's absolutely attracting for women, men, money, opportunities. Everything will come to you not by magic, but just because people can sense it, people can feel it, that this guy know what he's doing. This guy is doing something valuable. Even if he's not absolutely like smashing it right now, there is a potential he will be smashing in 5 years. So I better jump on this train right now with him.
There's two things I say. One, if you guys are like, oh, how do I attract a beautiful woman? And, like they've seen some of the women that I've dated or whatever, and they're just like, how do you do that? And it's like, in order to get a 10, you have to be a 10. You have to love who you are and be authentically who you are. And so I think, so many guys hate themselves and they're doing all these things, but yet they're trying to attract something that they're not. And they're trying to use that as fulfillment. So the other thing is, in order to lead others, you first must lead yourself. And I say that all the time. Like, if you want to lead a relationship or a family or a company or a community, you have to lead yourself first. And I think people get it backwards. They want all the other stuff first, and then they'll figure themselves out. And it's the opposite way. You got to figure out how to lead yourself first.
What's the main guidance you're giving to your boys right now in their middle 20s? Maybe something that you didn't receive when you were their age.
I'm actually having real conversations right now as we speak with my son, who's going to be 25 next month, really establishing what his vision is. He's extremely successful for a young kid and living in LA. And he's like, Dad, I don't, this isn't what I want. He's making good money and he's, doing some good things. And it's like, well, let's make a decision from your future self. Let's make decisions of where you want to be 15, 20 years from now. Let's set that vision and reverse engineer how we want that to look. You want the family? Okay. We don't need to go to bars every night. Like, those kind of things. Just working from your future self and establishing a vision. And so that's the conversation I'm having with him. It's a conversation I'm actually having with multiple guys. I get a lot of young guys who reach out to me and ask me for advice. And I'm like, we got to figure out your vision. It's not my vision. It's not what your parents want for you. It's what do you want? And so you have to figure that out first.
I believe having this vision helps you to stay focused and not get distracted on the shiny things. The whole world right now is built in a way to keep your attention, to get your attention and keep it, to distract you on someone else's success, on games, on porn or addictions, on beautiful women, everything else. And if you don't have this vision, if you don't know where you're going, what's your goal, you'll keep being distracted over and over again, and you will waste so much time trying to achieve someone else's goals, someone else's dreams.
It's the shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this. I want to do that. I want to do that. This is cool. I want to do that. Or I've got a great girlfriend, but this looks good over here. Right. And so it's the shiny object syndrome, and it's true. But here's the thing is, if you know what you really want, your purpose, it pulls you to where you want to go and where you want to be. Whereas if you don't have a purpose, yeah, you're just chasing everything that looks good, anything that comes along, you're just chasing. And it just is this zigzag course, right? Whereas like singular focus, because I know exactly where I want to go, just keeps you right in line. You're living in the bullseye of your life.
Absolutely. There is a tool from the book, The One Thing, that I absolutely love for self-management, is you figure it out, you try to figure it out what you want in 5 years, and then you reverse engineering. What should I do every year to be there in 5 years, every month, every week, every day? And you build your routine accordingly. That absolutely makes sense. It gives you like pretty much 80%, 90% guarantee that you will appear there if you just do the according actions every day.
Exactly. But if you don't know what you want, where do you start, right?
Well, you spend your 20s on that. You have 10 years more or less to figure out what you want, and what's the best way to figure it out. You just try everything randomly, and you keep being connected to yourself, and you keep questioning yourself, is this something I want to do? Is this something that brings me joy? What out of this I would like to take? What out of this I don't want to do anymore ever again?
Yeah.
And you build and shape your very specific thing that would work specifically for you, not trying to copy paste something from someone
Totally
else's
agree.
lives.
Yeah. And, I think guys are, especially, a perfect example of that is like, yeah, you need to, in your 20s, you need to experience different things. You need to, date multiple women, like, and just
Not at the same time, though.
not at the same time, and not necessarily sleeping with a lot of women. None of that. I'm just saying you need to figure out what it is that you want. And again, I was married at 19. I had no idea what I wanted for my life or anything else, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. But if you can do it right, and you can take the time to figure out exactly what it is that you want, then it's just going to be so much better when you actually find it. And so many guys are just in a rush just to fill that void in their lives, so they just take the first thing that comes along that feels pretty good, that's hot, and that's not how you are going to build a life that's really fulfilling, and a partnership and a marriage that's going to last. And I think that's a big problem today.
So if we're spending our 20s and figure out what we want and what's our purpose, what are we spending our 30s on?
Executing. putting into practice. I think I think there's unfortunately, a lot of guys still don't know what it is they want. They didn't take the time to in their 20s to figure it out. And so they reached their 30s, and this is kind of where I landed is I wasn't able to do it in my 20s. And so I find myself in my mid 30s going, there's got to be more. There's something that's not fulfilling here. But if you do it right and you figure it out in your 20s, you set the vision, then it's just executing. Then it's just following the playbook, right? And it's not just, and then you reassess and say, okay, you know what? How has that changed? How has that changed? And you don't do it every day. You do it over a period of time. And you say, okay, this is where I think we should go, but it's being thoughtful. It's planning. It's actually following a plan versus just, I think I should do this. I want to chase this. I want a new car. I want a new house. I want to keep up with the Jones.
Yeah, I think a very valuable advice that I received some long time ago is that even when you found something that you want to do, you found your purpose, you found your person, you found out what you want, sometimes it feels like still we're a little bit trapped just because, okay, so if this is my person, I'm doing this till the day I die. If this is my person, we're going to have lifelong marriage. But things are not always working out this way. I mean, we live in the real world where things can change. So what I find really helpful is that you can remember that you can always renegotiate in relationship, in your work life, everywhere, especially in the relationship. Once a year, you can renegotiate. The relationship were operating on one terms. Things have changed. We can sit, have a dull conversation, renegotiate the conditions, how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with your purpose, same with your work, same with your friendships. It's kind of like revision of your life once in a while, a big thing, not every day, obviously, but once in a while, just to know that you're actually, that actually works for you, gives you the best. Because sometimes we're also being stuck in something for way too long, and we start losing ourselves in these things.
I'm really glad you said that. And it's actually one of the reasons why people don't take action is because they don't give themselves permission to renegotiate after a period of time. It's like, okay, if I commit to this, then I'm stuck. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Put your head down, follow the plan for a year, and then we'll reassess. We'll renegotiate all those things, but let's try it. It doesn't make sense just to procrastinate and not do anything because you're afraid of what could potentially happen down the road. And I fell into that trap. It's like, if I commit to this, it means I'm stuck. It means I'm fully committed to this, where that's not real life. You can renegotiate, you can reassess, you can pivot. And that doesn't mean that it's not a success. It means it's just one step on the journey, and it's just slight little tweaks along the way to get you where you need to go.
Absolutely. You're always free if you choose to be free. You build these cells around yourself by yourself, no one else doing this. So it's always your decision.
Yeah.
So 20s, we're looking for ourselves. 30s, we're executing. 40s, is it time to chill? Finally enjoy the fruits of our labor? Or is it somewhere down the line?
I think it's different for everybody. But I think ideally, yeah, you start to settle down, you start to really figure out who you are and executing, and your priorities change, at least hopefully. Your priorities change to where, you do focus on your family, and you do focus on, you start to think about, perhaps legacy and kind of where do I want to go. And I think that's what your 40s, 50s, and 60s are for is your legacy, and what are you leaving behind. And that's where I've shifted to is legacy and what I want to leave behind. And that's why I love what I do, is that I'm able to help people, and I'm actually leaving a legacy in people's lives and changing lives. And so, yeah, I think 30s is executing. It's executing the plan, and then you start to pivot towards more legacy thoughts. And as you approach your 40s.
Yeah. And that's the answer on the question, what would happen if I would still keep chasing the money, if I wouldn't find work, a job, a business that was fulfilling? It means that for a while you can operate on that, you can keep running. But once you reach the point when your body biologically, your mind biologically, and you as an organism would start to ask questions, okay, what are we doing here? What's the purpose of us being in this world? What are we leaving behind? Those questions will start to destroy you from the inside. If by that time you're not doing something that gives back to community, gives back to the world, that brings value at least a little bit, if you're still selling your time for money, if you're still creating products that harms other people, you will get a hit back. Sooner or later, this point will come.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Amazing. So I guess on this point, your journey was really intense from all the different perspectives. But I never asked this question before, but I'm very, very curious. What do you think was your best decision so far
Mm.
in your life? Something life changing.
The best decision that I ever made was when I was 19 and found out my then girlfriend was pregnant, was to keep him. We were pressured by a lot of people to seek an abortion. And not only has my son been the biggest blessing of my life, but it completely changed who I was, you know. Very, very hard decision. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, I think a lot of folks are a lot of men find themselves in a similar situation, and they run or they um, are scared. And I'm just really thankful that I made the decision to support my pregnant girlfriend and marry her and keep our son. He's an incredible young man. Yeah.
What helped you to make that decision? What thoughts? Maybe you received support from someone.
Honestly, it was my faith. It was my faith that I felt like I had been raised right, and my Christian faith was very important to me. And I felt like I had made a mistake, and I could either um, take ownership of that mistake and to take responsibility, or I could make another mistake to cover it up. And so, I think my values and the way I had been raised was what led me to make that decision. And I knew it was going to be hard, and people came around. People came around, and but it was hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And fast forward 29 years,
Yeah.
your son is very successful, as I know. Looking back, if the God sent you this child back then
Yeah.
in, as you thought, a very inconvenient time, why he sent it to you? Why he gave you child back then?
Um, well, one, I think he's impacting the world. He's like I said, a great young man. He's, um, you know, he was a college baseball player. He had a lot of success business wise, and he's actually getting married this summer.
Oh,
So I don't know the answer. I don't know why, but like I said, he and my other son have completely changed my life and my direction, and what gets me excited every day. You know.
absolutely. Thank you for being so
Yeah,
vulnerable
no,
again.
that's a lot. Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that.
Yeah. I think on this point, it's just I have the last question that might be also not easy,
Oh, here
but
we
I
go.
guess easier. But I guess easier is that so many things happen. You've been through transformation as a businessman, as a father, as a just man itself, your mindset, everything. For everyone, anyone who's going through the similar journey and found himself aligned with your story, what's your biggest insight that can become a shortcut for someone else?
um, I think men really need to. Again, I say it all the time, but I really think that men need to figure out what their vision is for their life and for their families, and um, what's the legacy they want to leave behind. And we just got to stop going through the motions. We got to stop chasing things. We really need to take a step back and figure out which direction do I want the rest of my life to be. The direction I'm going today doesn't have to be the future. If you make a decision to really figure out what it is that you want, um, that will, I think that's the key. I really do.
To really figure out what you want and be not in rush for that, but really take your time, allow yourself to dedicate time of really figuring out. And once you do, remember that you can always renegotiate.
Exactly. Well
You're
said.
never trapped.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Thank you for today's conversation. I really think that it will be valuable, and for someone really needed to hear this today.
Good.
That's for sure.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you a lot. And thank for all of you for listening today. I really hope that it was interesting, that you found your insights that you needed to hear today. And follow this channel. Leave something in the comments so I would know what you think. Ring the bell, do whatever you want, actually. And I'll see you in the next episodes with a very interesting guests for you to find answers on your questions today. Thank you. See you in the next episodes. And we're done.
Okay.
And we're done.